Class 12 English. My mother at 66 question and answers part 2. 15. Why has the poet brought in the image of the merry children spilling out of their homes? Ans. The poet has brought out the contrast between her mother's weakness and frailty and blossoming life around bringing in merry children spilling out of their homes. The poet highlights the helplessness and weakness of the old age with the help of contrast. The mother dozes off while the children run out of their home with energy which the mother bereft of. 16. Where is the poet going and who is with her? Ans. The poet Kamala Das is going from her parents' home in Malabar in a car to the Cochin airport, located on the west coast of India. In the drive, her 66-year-old mother is with the poet. Sitting beside her, the mother sleeps open-mouthed and her face looks ash-colored. 17. Why has the poet brought in the image of the merry children spilling out of their homes? Ans. At the ashened and dozing sight of her mother's face beside, the poet has very painfully realized that her mother has really become old. The old face of the mother has alarmed her of mother's immediate death. So, the poet has brought in the image of the merry children spilling out of their homes to develop a contrast between old age and the dynamic childhood. 18. What did the poet see happening outside while she was driving? Ans. While the poet was driving to the Cochin airport with her mother, inside the car something happened painful and hopeless. On the contrary, outside the car something happened paradoxical. The young trees were running behind, which implies a new life. The merry children were running out of homes, which implied energy, happiness and dynamic activity. 19. What is the kind of pain and ache that the poet feels? Ans. The realization that her mother has grown so old pains the poet as she watches her mother doze off beside her in the car. Even since childhood, she has had this fear that she would one day lose her mother. The thought of separation and the irreparable loss that her mother's death would bring about tugs her heartstrings painfully. Though inevitable, the poet finds it difficult even to think about it. 20. Why are the young trees described as sprinting? Ans. It is a common phenomenon that stationary objects appear to move when we are traveling at a high speed. The poet was in the car and looked out of the window. Since the car was moving in a particular direction, the trees at the side seemed to be moving fast in the opposite direction. It was as if the young green trees were running in stark contrast to the pale and old figure of her mother. 21. Why has the poet brought in the image of the merry children spilling out of their homes? Ans. The image of merry children creates a poetic effect through contrast. It is symbolic of life, merriment, vitality and joyousness. The poet's mother is an image of age, frailty and decay, and this contrast brings the painful realization that the time was drawing closer to an inevitable loss in the daughter's life. 22. Why has the mother been compared to the late winter's moon? Ans. It is a very appropriate comparison and immediately brings to mind the picture of something that is waning, lackluster and feeble. The moon during late winter appears hazy, dim and obscure, and so was the ashen to have lost its brightness and strength. 23. What do the parting words of the poet and her smile signify? Ans. The parting words "see you soon, Anma" and her smiles signify the poet's fear and her conscious effort to hide it behind a smile. It is an assurance she gives her mother as well as to herself. It also signifies a hope that she finds herself clinging to, a hope to see her mother again. 24. What does the poet's childhood fear? Ans. The poet has a fear since her childhood days that one day she would lose her mother. She could not reconcile with the thoughts and it always haunted her. 25. Why did the poet smile and smile? Once, the poet smiled and smiled as she bade goodbye to her mother at the airport. With an aching heart, she left her old mother standing there but managed to leave her with a smile that only concealed the pain within. 26. What do the sprinting trees symbolize? Uns, the sprinting trees are a symbol of life, of youthfulness and vitality. The young green trees seemed to run away as they speed towards the airport. 27. How does the poet present the contrast between the worlds that exist in the car and the outside it? Uns, in the car, seated beside the poet was her aging mother, pale and weak, inching gradually towards death. Disturbed by the thought, the poet looked outside the window which offered a contrast in a picture of life and youthfulness. The trees were young and seemed to run away at a speed while little children merrily rushed out of their homes. 28. What does the poet do to divert her thoughts from her aging mother? Does it help? Uns, the poet looks out of the window just to divert her mind from painful thoughts that arises in her mind from the sight of her mother, weak and pale beside her. She sees young trees and merry children present a picture of life as youthfulness. But the diversion is momentary. As she reaches the airport and checks in, she looks back at her mother standing a little distance away. The same ache and despair fills her heart though she tries to conceal it with a smile on her face.